The 18th summit of the Group of 20, G20, will take place in New Delhi, India, on 9th and 10th of September 2023. The G20 is made up of 19 countries: Argentina, Australia, Brazil, Canada, China, Germany, France, India, Indonesia, Italy, Japan, South Korea, Mexico, Russia, Saudi Arabia, South Africa, Turkey, UK, the US, and the European Union. India currently has the presidency of G20. The G20 in 2023 will focus on the theme, One Earth, One Family, One Future. The theme affirms the value of human, animal, plant, and microorganisms, and their interconnectedness on planet Earth and in the wider universe. The working groups will focus on the tracks of agriculture, anti-corruption, culture, digital economy, disaster risk reduction, development, education, employment, environment and climate sustainability, energy transitions, health, trade and investment, and tourism. Before we proceed, kindly return the favor and like and subscribe. Also, consider supporting the work we do by joining our team. Link in the description and channel bio. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi is the host of this year's G20. US President Joe Biden will represent United States. Premier Li Qiang will lead China's delegation. President Xi Jinping will not attend. Russian President Vladimir Putin will also miss G20 Summit, and Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov will be representing Russia. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, Japanese Prime Minister, Australian Prime Minister, South Korean President, German Chancellor, French President, South African President, Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan, and representatives of other members of G20 are likely to attend G20 Summit in India. As president of this year's summit, India has only invited Bangladesh from its neighboring countries, and its Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina is likely to attend the summit. Other countries that have been invited for the summit are Egypt, Mauritius, Netherlands, Nigeria, Oman, Singapore, Spain, and the United Arab Emirates. Organizations such as the United Nations, UN, the International Monetary Fund, IMF, the World Health Organization, WHO, the World Trade Organization, WTO, the International Labor Organization, ILO, and the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, OECD, have also been invited. India has also invited the International Solar Alliance, ISA, the Coalition for Disaster Resilient Infrastructure, CDRI, and the Asian Development Bank, ADB, to the two-day summit. In the absence of Russian and Chinese presidents, summit will be dominated by the West and its allies. Divisions of world powers over Russia's war in Ukraine risk derailing progress on issues such as food security, debt distress, and global cooperation on climate change in the summit. The hardened stance on the war has prevented agreement on even a single communique at the 20 or so ministerial meetings of the G20 during India's presidency this year. A failed summit would expose the limits of cooperation between Western and non-Western powers and prompt countries to double down on the groups they are more comfortable with. Failing to forge a consensus will also hurt the diplomatic credentials of Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who is using the presidency to bolster New Delhi's position as economic powerhouse and a leader of the global South. If the leaders' summit is a flop, New Delhi and especially Modi will have suffered a major diplomatic and political setback. President Xi's absence may be Beijing's attempt to put a nail in the G20's coffin, only weeks after expanding the BRICS organization, which is more aligned with China's worldview. Last month, China added half a dozen more countries to the BRICS in a push to reshuffle a world order it sees as outdated. India is a member of BRICS, along with Russia, China, Brazil, and South Africa, and had some concerns about the bloc's expansion earlier. But at the summit in Johannesburg last month, it joined a consensus on the criteria for new entrants. In its G20 presidency, India has sought to relegate the differences over Ukraine to the background and pushed for resolution on climate change, debt for vulnerable countries, rules around cryptocurrencies, and multilateral bank reforms. India has also attempted to break an impasse over a deal that allowed the safe export of Ukrainian grain via the Black Sea. But Russia is unlikely to budge from its opposition to the plan. Over the year, there has been little progress on debt restructuring talks and a minimum global corporate tax, but India has been able to gain support from the US and the IMF for overarching global regulations on cryptocurrencies. A G20 committee under a former Indian bureaucrat and a former U.S. Treasury Secretary has also proposed increasing lending by multilateral banks to developing countries. The proposal has not been agreed on yet. Climate change goals had also divided developed and developing countries in July. Meetings of the group and officials said the positions are not likely to change at the summit. The G20 is also expected to adopt a leaders' declaration at the conclusion of the summit that states leaders' commitment towards the priorities discussed and agreed upon during the ministerial and working group meetings. Heated arguments are expected between Western and non-Western blocs over the Russia-Ukraine war. India has so far not been able to foster consensus for a joint communiqué from the previous G20 meetings and other major tracks that it has convened. Member states haven't been able to agree on binding action due largely to Russia's and China's objections to the language referring to the Ukraine crisis. Because of changing political situation of the world, important issues which relate to the survival and development of human beings could be neglected. Developing countries are severely suffering due to this world politics. What India can pull out from this G20 summit? Well, India has identified a wide array of priorities from financing tomorrow's cities and establishing them as the foremost engines of economic growth to energy transition and healthcare. India had hoped to forge consensus on a range of issues from a regulatory framework for cryptocurrencies to the resolution of crippling debt issues for developing countries. Other areas include reforms in multilateral banks as part of its agenda to foster progress on sustainable development, as well as the admission of the African Union as a member of the G20. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi has also turned the normally sedity rotating presidency of the group of 20 nations into a branding vehicle to burnish India's geopolitical importance, underscoring India's emergence as a key voice on the world stage. From the Western point of view, India also has another strategic importance. As we all know, the political situation of the world is dramatically changing. China's Belt and Road Initiative, tilt of more countries toward China, Russian invasion of Ukraine. Situation in Africa has also changing dramatically, and many African countries are asking French force to leave their countries. Many countries have started bilateral trade in local currencies instead of dollar. These events have made serious threats to US and its allies' dominance of the world. A new multipolar world order is on the horizon, and China is looking for a more comfortable role in this world order. So, the US fear the growing power of China, and it want to contain that power. So US want India to compete China both economically and strategically to contain its power. India is already showing the world that it can compete the world powers, and it has the blessings of the US, for now at least. This year's G20 Summit is also turning into a political gathering. So let's see what events fold in the summit, and we will make another analysis on its completion. Goodbye, and take care. And now, let us hear from you in the comments section below. Keep in mind that more videos will be up soon. So, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell in order to stay up to date with new video uploads. Also, sharing indicates you want to see our content reach a wider audience. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.